The glass of wine slipped from Mrs. Adesua's hand and shattered on the marble floor. Her gaze locked on the small white stick in her maid's trembling hand. Two bold red lines glide back at her like a curse she could not escape.
If Anita thinks she can steal Morgan from me, then she has no idea who she's fighting with. A whole me, Rachel Williams. Morgan belongs to me. No way.
You said what? Morgan's mother shouted.
Pregnant by my son? Do you think you can walk into my house and ruin everything I've built? Not in this lifetime.
She hissed, her voice low, sharp, dangerous. Anita's lips quivered as she fell to her knees.
I swear I didn't plan this. It was a mistake. Please, you have to believe me.
The crack of a slap silenced her. Her cheeks stung, her vision blurred, but the fury in Mrs. Adesua's eyes burned brighter than the pain. You thought you could trap my son with your village tricks? Foolish girl. You and that thing in your stomach will never remain in this house. Anita bowed her head, choking back a sob. Behind them, the other maids froze in terror, none daring to move or speak. That night, Mrs. Adesua's voice was cold and steady as she spoke into her phone. Madam, please, I beg you, Anita sobbed, clutching her stomach. I never planned this. Don't hurt my baby. Her voice cracked, but Adesua's face remained stone cold. The silence was heavy, until her lips curled into a cruel smile. She picked up her phone slowly, each button press sounding like a death sentence. Dr. Femi, she whispered. I have a problem. And it must be gone by tomorrow morning. By midnight, Anita was in the back of a black SUV, tears streaking her swollen face. The car stopped at a quiet private clinic on the edge of the city. Inside, Mrs. Adesua slid a thick envelope across the doctor's desk. Handle it. Today. The doctor examined Anita in silence, then frowned. Her temperature is dangerously high. If I touch her womb now, she could bleed out. Mrs. Adesua's jaw tightened. A smile stretched across her lips, but her eyes were cold. Fine. Tomorrow. But not a word to anyone. No records. Back in the servants' quarters, Anita clutched her stomach, whispering prayers into the night. Her fear pressed heavily against her ribs, each heartbeat a warning of danger. At dawn, Mrs. Adesua's plan changed. When the guards searched her bag, gasps filled the room as a gold necklace glimmered in their hands. Stealing from me, Anita. Adesua's voice rang out. Anita dropped to her knees, trembling. No. That's not mine. Please believe me. But no one spoke. No one dared. And in that moment, Anita knew the verdict had already been passed. Mrs. Adesua's voice echoed. Don't ever come back. You are no longer welcome here. That evening, the gates of the mansion slammed shut behind her. The driver shoved a small bag into her hands and drove away without looking back. The night air was cold, the street unfamiliar. Anita stood frozen, staring after the retreating car, her body trembling. Tears welled in her eyes, but she forced them back. She would not break here, not where anyone could see. Her chest tightened as she thought of the child inside her. She had no family to run to, no friends to call. Only the harsh city lights ahead, and the long, uncertain road waiting to swallow her whole. She took a shaky step forward, the city lights blurring through her tears. But this wasn't where her story began. To understand her pain, we must go back, 6 months earlier. Morgan had returned to Nigeria, and his mother, Mrs. Adesua, was beside herself with excitement. She had spent years pushing him to come back home, take over the family business, and marry into a wealthy family, just as any mother would want for her only son. She had a plan for him, and that plan did not involve a maid. Not someone like Anita, at least. Anita had been with Mrs. Adesua for years, always quiet, always obedient, always treated like dote. Mrs. Adesua never hesitated to yell at her, slap her, or scold her for the smallest of mistakes. She was poor, uneducated, and easily disposable, in Mrs. Adesua's eyes. But when Morgan returned, everything changed. From the moment he set foot back in Nigeria, Anita treated him with kindness, something he hadn't expected. She would ask him what he wanted to eat, make sure he was comfortable, and talked to him in a way that made him feel seen, heard. It was such a stark contrast to the shallow, materialistic world his mother had always tried to build around him. Anita didn't care about Morgan's wealth, his status, or the heavy weight of his mother's expectations. She saw him, not as a prize or a business investment, but as a man with a beating heart. And as the days slipped by, Morgan began to notice things he had once overlooked. The way Anita's lips moved in quiet prayer for him, for his mother, even after that same woman had spoken to her with cold contempt. The way she cared for him with no demands, no conditions, only sincerity. She had a heart, a pure heart. And somehow, that touched something in him. One day, after a stressful meeting, Morgan stormed into the living room, his frustration evident. His mother was busy on the phone with a potential business partner, ignoring him. Anita, who had been sweeping the hallway, noticed his agitation. "Is everything okay, sir?" she asked, her voice gentle. Morgan stopped, not expecting her to be so observant. He sighed, sinking into the nearest armchair. "No. Just, too much going on. It feels like I'm trapped in this whole world I don't belong in." Anita put down the broom and sat next to him. "It's okay to feel that way. Sometimes, it's good to take a step back and breathe. You're doing the best you can." Morgan was taken aback by her words. Most people in his life never took the time to understand his struggles, but here was Anita, offering a shoulder to lean on without asking for anything in return. A few days later, Rachel, the woman Mrs. Adeshwa wanted her son to marry, arrived. Her heels echoed against the marble floor as she walked through the hallway, eyes sweeping across the mansion like she already owned it. She was not here for love, she was here for power. Rachel's eyes fell on Anita. "You, bring me water. Now." Anita obeyed, but when she returned, Rachel sneered and flung the glass in her face. Water dripped from her uniform as Rachel hissed, "You're nothing but a servant." The front door swung open. Mrs. Adesua and Morgan stepped inside. They stopped at the sight, Anita dripping with water, Rachel clutching her cheek in mock pain. "Rachel, what happened?" Morgan's voice cut through the air. "She slapped me." Rachel cried, her voice shaking. "This maid attacked me for no reason." "What?" Mrs. Adesua gasped. She stormed forward and struck Anita across the face. The slap echoed through the hall. Anita stood frozen, her face stinging, her eyes wet with unshed tears. "Stop!" Morgan's voice thundered. His fists clenched as he glared at them. "What are you doing?" Rachel blinked, startled by his anger. "But Morgan, she..." "You're lying," he snapped, his eyes burning into hers. Rachel faltered. I'm not." "Enough." His voice was sharp as a blade. He turned to his mother, anger tightening his jaw. "And you, how could you?" Without even asking her. Mrs. Adesua's eyes widened, shocked at his defiance. Morgan moved to Anita, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" His voice softened, meant only for her. Anita's lips trembled. She nodded faintly. "I'm fine, sir." But she wasn't. Everyone could see it. Morgan turned back, his fury still simmering. "Don't you ever treat her like this again. Not in my house." Rachel's face burned with humiliation. Morgan hadn't even looked at her, his eyes had been on Anita the whole time. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by Morgan's footsteps as he left with Anita, leaving Rachel and Mrs. Adesua staring after them, shaken. For the first time, it was clear, Morgan's heart was no longer where they wanted it to be. A week passed, and despite his growing feelings for Anita, Morgan kept his distance. His mother had already begun pushing him to date a suitable girl, someone who could uphold the family's reputation, someone from a wealthy family. But he didn't want that. He wanted someone real. The next night, Morgan returned late from an outing with his friends. His steps were heavy, his shirt slightly undone, the scent of alcohol clinging to him. As he made his way down the dimly lit corridor, he stopped at the sight of Anita, crouched by the wall with a bucket and rag in hand. She looked up, startled. "You're still awake," His voice was low, rough from drink. Yes, sir. I was just finishing, Anita replied, her tone quiet, respectful. She tried to avoid his gaze, but something in his eyes made it impossible to look away. Morgan took a step closer, then another, until the space between them grew unbearably tense. Her hands trembled around the rag she held, and she quickly lowered her eyes. But he reached out, gently lifting her chin. For weeks, he had been fighting the strange pull he felt whenever she was near, the warmth of her presence, the calm way she cared for everyone in the house, the quiet strength in her silence. And now, in this fragile moment, with his guard down, it all crashed into him at once. You don't have to finish tonight, he whispered. Anita hesitated, but when he swayed slightly, she instinctively reached out. Let me help you, she said softly, steadying his arm and guiding him toward his room. Inside, the silence was heavy. She tried to turn away, but his hand lingered on hers. Their eyes met again, and before she could think, his lips found hers. His lips met hers. It was a kiss born of loneliness, need, and the forbidden spark they had both tried to bury. That night, everything changed. And by morning, nothing would ever be the same again. When the fog of alcohol cleared, he woke up in his bed, the sheets stained with the marks of their night together. He looked over at the spot where Anita had been, and she was gone, vanished like a dream he never thought would come true. But she left something behind, a part of her that Morgan couldn't ignore. She had been a virgin. His emotions were all over the place. Guilt, love, confusion. He tried to speak with her, but she avoided him. She kept her distance, scared of what his mother might do if she found out. And so, Morgan kept his feelings buried deep inside. Then, a few days later, Morgan had to travel for a business deal. His absence left things unsettled between him and Anita. And in his absence, something else happened that he couldn't control. Anita found out she was pregnant. The shock came crashing down on her. And when Mrs. Adesua found out, there was no question about what would happen next. Back to the present, Anita kept walking through the dark streets, the weight of her situation pressing down on her chest. She was pregnant with Morgan's child, but she couldn't keep running away from the truth. Her life had been forever changed in the blink of an eye. And now, she was all alone. Her mind raced. What was she going to do? She couldn't go back to the mansion. The door had been shut in her face, her future uncertain. The night was quiet, too quiet. Her only companion was the uncertainty that loomed before her. Rachel stepped into the mansion early that morning, looking like she had stepped out of a fashion magazine. Morgan would be back today, and she wanted to be the first thing he saw. But the moment she entered the hallway, she stopped. From the living room came Madame Adesua's voice, low, but laced with danger. If any of you dare to talk about Anita's pregnancy, I will destroy you and your families. Do you hear me? Rachel froze. Pregnancy? What pregnancy? She asked, walking in. Madame Adesua didn't flinch. That maid had the audacity to get pregnant for my son. I threw her out last night. She's gone. Rachel's smile almost slipped. If Morgan found out, she was finished. She needed to move fast. By afternoon, Morgan returned. After greeting his mother, his first words were, "Where's Anita?" I sent her away, Madame Adesua said smoothly. She stole my gold necklace. I don't believe that, Morgan snapped. Tomorrow morning, I'll find her and bring her back. Rachel's stomach tightened. No, he can't. Morgan, she said softly, pretending to hesitate. There's something you should know. Anita isn't who you think she is. She's been seeing another man. She's already married to him, and the baby isn't yours. That's a lie, Morgan said instantly. Ask the maids, Rachel replied quickly. Morgan turned to one of the maids. Is that true? The maid glanced at Madame Adesua, who gave the smallest nod. Yes, sir, it's true, she whispered. Morgan's shoulders stiffened. Doubt crept in. I can take you to her, Rachel offered, her tone gentle, though her eyes glimmered with quiet victory. That night, she called her family driver. Find a man. Pay him well. Make it look real. Be quick about it. The next morning, the car rolled into a dusty street. Rachel pointed ahead. She's there. Morgan stepped out and froze. Anita sat on a worn wooden bench, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. Beside her stood a tall man with his arm around her shoulders. He leaned close, whispering something. Anita gave a small, tired smile. Morgan's chest tightened. His heart pounded like a drum. Then the man noticed Morgan watching. He grabbed Anita's chin, forcing a kiss against her cheek. Morgan's heart pounded as the stranger forced a kiss against Anita's cheek. She shoved him away, shouting, "Leave me alone." But Morgan didn't hear that part. He had already turned back to the car, his chest heavy with betrayal. What he saw had broken him, but was it really the truth? Rachel leaned back in her seat, hiding her smile. Step 1, complete. Morgan's ride back to the mansion was silent, but inside, his mind was chaos. Rachel sat beside him, stealing quick glances at his clenched fists and the storm gathering in his eyes. She wanted to speak, to press the lie deeper into his heart, but something about his silence frightened her. When they reached the mansion, he went straight to his room and locked the door. He sank onto the bed, his head in his hands. The image replayed endlessly. Anita on that bench, the man's hand on her, the kiss she had shoved away. But she did push him away, didn't she? Doubt gnawed at him, refusing to let go. Downstairs, Mrs. Adesua and Rachel exchanged a look. He doesn't believe it fully yet, Rachel whispered. We need to make sure he never goes back to her. Mrs. Adesua's eyes narrowed. Leave that to me. I've handled bigger threats than a village maid. Meanwhile, Anita sat on the same bench long after the car disappeared. Her hands trembled as she rubbed her stomach. That man, he wasn't her husband, he wasn't anyone to her. He was just a stranger who had been paid to harass her. But Morgan, he had seen everything. And she saw the pain in his eyes before he walked away. She buried her face in her hands and wept. Not just for herself, but for the child who was already caught in a battle of lies. On a bright Saturday evening, Morgan and Rachel were invited to a prestigious event. They walked into the grand hall, hand in hand. Rachel looked like a queen, smiling proudly. But then, Morgan froze. His eyes locked on a young woman arranging tables at the far end of the hall. She wore a simple waiter's uniform, her belly is round, swollen with pregnancy. It was Anita. From across the hall, their eyes collided. The tray slipped from Anita's hands. For a moment, the world stopped. Morgan's breath caught in his throat. After everything, she was here. And she was pregnant. Rachel noticed his stare, her smile faded. Anita quickly turned and ran out of the hall. Morgan! Rachel hissed, tugging his arm. But it was too late, he had already rushed after her. Outside, under the cool night sky, Morgan caught Anita's arm. Anita! Please, stop. She turned slowly, her eyes wet with tears. Her voice shook as she whispered, Why are you doing this to me, Morgan? Haven't you hurt me enough already? Morgan's chest rose and fell, his eyes desperate. I never stopped looking for you. Anita, that child, tell me the truth. Is it mine? Her lips trembled. For a moment, her heart screamed to tell him yes. But she remembered the pain, the rejection, his mother's cruel words. She remembered the mansion gate slamming in her face. No, Morgan, she said, forcing the words out. The baby is not yours. He staggered back as if she had stabbed him. What? Anita, don't lie to me, please. She swallowed hard, holding back her tears. You're engaged to Rachel. And besides. Her voice broke, but she forced herself to continue. I am married now. Morgan froze, his face pale. Married. His voice was a whisper. To who? It doesn't matter, she said quickly, avoiding his eyes. Just leave me alone. Go back to your life. Your mother never wanted me, and I don't want to be the reason you fight her anymore. She pulled her arm free, her steps heavy, each one carrying the weight of a lie she wished she didn't have to tell. Morgan's eyes filled with pain. His hands shook as he whispered after her. Anita, if that child is not mine, then why does my heart feel like I'm losing everything? Rachel appeared, her heels clicking sharply. So this is what you've been hiding, she sneered. The maid and her bastard. But Anita kept walking, her tears falling silently into the night. Weeks passed. Despite his restless nights and haunted dreams, Morgan allowed the wedding plans to continue. Rachel paraded him around like a trophy, while Mrs. Adesua boasted of her son's perfect life. But Morgan's eyes were always empty. Morgan sat in his room, staring at the wall, the weight of Anita's words still crushing his chest. His phone buzzed. It was the private investigator he had hired in secret weeks ago. Sir, I've been following the maid and that man she claimed was her husband, the voice said. They are not married. In fact, he's been seen harassing her. Tonight, something happened. You need to come quickly. Morgan shot to his feet. Where? The address was given. He grabbed his car keys and raced into the night, his heart pounding harder than the engine. When he arrived, the street was almost empty, except for a few people gathered near a corner. He parked in a hurry and ran toward them. His breath caught when he saw her. Anita. She was lying on the ground near a dump site, her face bruised, her clothes torn, her body weak. A crowd whispered around her, their voices heavy with pity. It was a man, one of them said. We saw him beating her. But when he noticed people coming, he ran away. Morgan dropped to his knees beside her, his chest tightening. Anita. Anita, can you hear me? Her eyelids fluttered, her lips barely moving. With her last strength, Anita's lips parted. Her voice was faint, almost lost in the wind. Morgan, the baby is yours. His blood ran cold. And then, her eyes closed. Her voice was faint, broken. He gathered her carefully into his arms, trembling with fear. Don't talk. Please, just hold on. Without wasting a second, he lifted her into his car and sped toward the hospital. When they reached the hospital, nurses rushed out with a stretcher. Morgan followed, refusing to let go of her hand until they pulled her into the emergency ward. He stood outside, pacing the cold hallway, his mind racing. Images of her smile, her prayers, her tears, all the moments he had doubted, cut through him like knives. The door swung open, and a doctor stepped out. Morgan froze. Sir, the doctor said, she was badly beaten, but we're doing everything we can. The baby is still alive, but it's a delicate situation. We need to keep her under close watch. Morgan closed his eyes, a tear slipping down his cheek. For the first time in weeks, he didn't care about Rachel, his mother, or the lies that had poisoned everything. All he wanted was for Anita, and their child, to survive. Morgan paced the hallway, each tick of the clock stabbing his chest. Hours crawled by. Then, just before dawn, a sound broke through the silence, the cry of a newborn. Morgan froze, tears flooding his eyes. He rushed inside, and there she was. Anita, weak but alive, cradling their son. He bent over Anita, his hand trembling as he touched her face. You made it, he whispered. His eyes moved to the baby, and his chest tightened. Our son. Anita smiled faintly, her hand brushing against his. I told you, he's yours. Morgan held the baby carefully, his tears falling freely now. I swear, I will never let anyone hurt you again. Both of you. Later that day, news spread quickly. The police had caught the man who attacked Anita. The man trembled under police questioning. And then, the truth spilled out. A truth darker than anyone had imagined. It was Rachel, he confessed. She paid me to follow the girl, to make it look like she had another man. And when that failed, she told me to make sure she loses the baby. When Morgan heard this, anger burned in his veins. Rachel was arrested immediately. She cried and begged, but the damage was done. The lies, the wickedness, it had all come crashing down. Mrs. Adesua came to the hospital later, her face pale, her steps slow. She stood by Anita's bed, watching the baby sleep. For the first time, her proud eyes softened for the first time. I was wrong. My pride nearly destroyed you. Forgive me. Anita's eyes filled with tears. I forgive you, madam, but never treat anyone like that again. Adesua nodded, her voice breaking. She held her son's hand. I promise. From today, this child, and his mother, are family. Morgan smiled through his tears, holding Anita close. For the first time, peace settled in his heart. Moral lesson: sometimes, life is not about riches, position, or pride. True love cannot be silenced by lies, and no one should be judged by their background. Sometimes, the stone that is rejected becomes the very cornerstone of the house. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments.